It's awfully depressing sounding music and an awfully depressing but very special episode of Flick and the Bozman as we're playing Met funeral music as another season has died without a World Series win. How's it going there, Boz?
It's a sad, sad day. I never saw this coming. It happened so suddenly.
It's a shock that you predicted before the season started. You may have the record exactly right, but and that's what qualifies you for what's happening today. We have a few minutes to give you an interview to be the Mets GM going forward. Sandy Alderson is apparently going to have some position as team president or team something, but they need a GM or even an assistant GM. But we're shooting for the top, and we're interviewing you for GM right now, and that interview will be conducted by me, Flick, and also by me playing the role of Steve Cohen. And I don't do a lot of voices, and he's not one of them. So it may be very hard to follow along whether I'm talking like me or talking like him. But you have to impress us both to get this role of GM.
Can I interview for assistant to the general manager?
The traveling general manager only.
Yes. Right.
Yes, assistant to the assistant. But we already have the hashtag. I can't say it's trending yet, but Boz for Mets GM. You can get your responses there if you want to, or you can use the Flick Boz on Twitter. Or you can email us at gmail.com. All of these things will lead to getting the Bozman the job he needs and the job we need. We need him more than he needs us because this team went nowhere this year and is going to go nowhere next year unless we take some of his ideas. And we're going to start at the most important position for any baseball team, catcher.
Well, you need a catcher, as the great Casey Stengel once said. Without a catcher, you get a lot of pass balls.
So we have Robinson Chirinos. You like him? You want to keep him around? My first question to you as a potential GM is Robinson Chirinos our catcher?
I can make it easy for you. None of the catchers that played for the Mets this year will be back.
Tomas Nido.
Did he play for them this year?
Rene Rivera.
I don't know if he actually played for the Mets. No.
Ali Sanchez.
No, they're gone.
Pat, how are they gone? How are we getting rid of these contracts?
I'm cutting them. So no, the only guy that has an option is Wilson Ramos. The other guy,
not a small option.
Released. We can release Thomas Nido. We can.
So you're spending my money already. You see, I've switched over into being Steve Cohen. You're just dropping
picking up Wilson Ramos's option. We're not picking up the option on these players.
What does that mean? I don't know all these fancy baseball terms.
That means we're making them free agents.
Ah, okay. So he can just sign with anywhere and we just lose him for nothing.
We lose them for nothing. They are worth nothing.
So we need a catcher.
You need two catchers.
You got some ideas. If you're wasting my time you've come in here with no ideas at catcher.
The first thing you want to avoid is chasing after the shiny objects, chasing after whatever.
I've heard a lot about this Real Muto guy. Do I want him?
That's the shiny object. Oh. Everybody thinks he's the best thing, the best catcher on the market. The thing that worries me is two things. One, whenever there's the best player on the free agent market, everybody's going to be interested, and you're going to have to overpay to get him, and that's pretty much where he and Trevor Bauer are. They're the guys that everybody's saying you have to have these guys. They're the best at their position. If you need a catcher, if you need a pitcher, go get those guys. Two, Real Muto, as with these other guys, is going on 30 plus years old, and all of the catcher free agents are at least 30 years old. And you want to avoid any kind of long, large contract for a 30-plus-year-old catcher. It's going to go badly. Ask the Twins with Joe Mauer.
Well, you're telling me what not to do. What should I do?
Right. So there are only a handful of catchers who have had positive contributions in wins above replacement over the last couple of years. The best of them, besides Real Muto, who is a very good catcher, don't get me wrong, very good catcher, you're going to overpay for him. And given his injuries this year and his age and his usage, you're going to overpay for him by a lot. James McCann is the guy that I would spend the most money on.
Where is he now?
He's with the White Sox, and he is a free agent this year. All the guys I'm telling you are free agents. There are no trades that need to be made to bring in a starter for this year at catcher and at any other position. We're not giving up any of our prospects. That, by the way, is part of our new philosophy as a team. We're going to develop our own players and fill in with stars when we can get them for a decent price, or with what I would call scrap heap guys that just need another chance to get a starting role to prove that they're still major league players. So the other guys that I think are potentially good and potentially could be starters if needed, but I would spend starter money on James McCann are Alex Avila, Tyler Flowers, and Francisco Cervelli. Sorry.
What happened to Russell Martin? Your crush.
Russell Martin is fine if you want. I mean, he didn't play at all this year. I'm be fine to bring him in on a minor league contract if he's available and willing to. You probably need a third catcher, and frankly, I mean, I'm being a little dramatic. If Thomas Nido is our AAA catcher that comes up to play for to be the extra player on a doubleheader, fine. But he's not going to start. He's not going to be the backup. He's going to be the in case of emergency break glass guy.
All right, I like your catcher ideas so far. You get to stay for a few more minutes on this interview. Give me a first baseman. I need someone at first base.
Fortunately, you have a first baseman.
Oh, I do. I didn't know what I bought. I have a first baseman.
Our former GM, Sandy Alderson, drafted, and it turned out that he drafted much better than certainly appeared just 2 short years ago in Dom Smith.
How much do I got to pay that guy?
Frankly, I didn't look at how much he's if he's arbitration eligible yet. I think he might be. He won't be more than a couple $1 million. You should probably consider signing him to a long-term extension now. He's the type of player who's going to age well. He's going to hit for average.
He only made $570,000 this year. You want to pay him more than that? Oh, okay.
I think it would be fine to sign him to a long-term, call it 6 or 8 year deal that would average, $8 to $10 million a year. Over the course of it, you're going to make money in the long run because he's going to be worth it. He's a young player. He's only 25. You sign him through the prime of his career.
I thought we had another young guy, this Alonso, something like that.
Alonso should be the DH. We're going to go on the assumption that there will be a DH next year.
What if there's not? I need a fallback plan.
Then the fallback plan would be to do what we've done this year, what the Mets have done this year, and alternate out Smith and Alonso and what they did last year, which may be a more appropriate example because they didn't have the DH last year, and get Smith to play a little left field and a little first base, and get Alonso to do the same to play first base as well.
I need a second baseman.
You do need a second baseman. I think McNeil's best position is second base. He doesn't have the arm for left field. He doesn't have the arm for third base. He's okay at those positions. He's obviously a starter. He's another guy you can sign to a long-term extension, and you should.
He's pre-arbitration too. I got to sign him too.
Yes, in the long run, this is going to build a long-term successful franchise.
How much am I spending on him if I hire you?
I would, again, similar to Smith, you could probably sign him to a cheaper contract than Smith because he is certainly not arbitration eligible yet. This is just his third year coming up. So you have a lot more team control with McNeil. So you could probably get an extra year for similar money, right? So if Smith was, call it 6 years and $50 million, you might be able to get 7 years and $50 million for McNeil.
All right, you got to give me somebody cheap at shortstop. I'm spending too much money here.
Shortstop is Andres Jimenez. You're not spending any money yet. I mean, What we're doing now is very cheap. If you want to have a winning team, you're going to have to spend some money. If you want to have a sustainable team, you want to avoid, as I said, the shiny objects. You want to develop your own players. You want to spend money on international signing, on scouting, and even to the possibly to the extent that teams like the Yankees and Red Sox have done in the past, and the Dodgers, of overspending and getting a lot of very good players in the international draft, uh, to the extent that you lose international money and lose a draft pick or two, um, in future years, to really bolster the minor leagues,
So,
and get a
can I
bunch of
just
good
keep
prospects.
Jimenez at his rookie deal, or what's the deal here?
Yeah, Jimenez has a couple more years before he's arbitration eligible. There's no need to even to consider at this point signing him to a long-term extension, because although he's got, quote unquote, his rookie year under his belt, he's really only got a handful of at bats, and we don't know for sure that he can handle shortstop in the long term.
I'm
He's a young kid. I think he's going to be
I'm
22
getting
next
a
year.
communication that says you haven't talked about Robinson Cano.
Uh, no, Cano will be traded. Will be eating some of his contract.
Will be what
He's
now? Will be who?
uh, will be eating some of his contract.
That sounds
He's
bad.
owed something like $24 million a year for the next 3 years. He's coming off a very
Who
good
signed
year
that
where he
deal?
hit
That's
over 300
ridiculous.
power. What's it?
Did you sign that deal? Who signed that deal? 10 years,
Uh,
240 million.
that
Ay,
would be your current GM,
ah,
the guy whose job I'm interviewing to take the place of. And
gotcha.
I think not coincidentally, that's why he traded for him, is because he likes him that much, and/or wanted to do him a favor. He did the same thing when he signed Jed Lowry, who
Jed, who
also was
now?
a
I haven't seen him on the
former
field.
client. No, you wouldn't have. You had to look really carefully last year. I think he had 2 games or so. But you did pay $20 million for that, or the Wilpons did.
I did see Todd Frazier. We're bringing him back, Little League hero.
Little League hero from wherever the heck he's from, New Jersey.
Tom
Um,
Berger.
Tom's River, yes, the Little League champions. No, I mean, I wouldn't discount bringing back Frazier as a bench player. I know he can play a little second base, he can play a little first base, a little third base. You probably need a veteran like that, but if he wants to be a starter somewhere, it's not going to happen on this team.
And you've decided no third baseman moving forward.
No, I kind of like having a third baseman.
Hmm.
Um, Similar to Jimenez, the guy that I would prefer to play there as a guy with minimal number of major league at bats is Luis Guillorme, who's really impressed me defensively, and he's hit enough this year in limited at bats to have me pencil him in at third base. He's super cheap. You can
Ooh,
give
I
him a
like
chance
that.
there.
Super cheap. I like it.
Uh, and if he doesn't work out, I think you can revert back to a variation of what we've done this year, and have J.D. Davis and Jeff McNeil play some third base, and move Guillorme back to second, which is his more natural position. Guillorme does have a very strong arm, very good reflexes, very good glove. He's an excellent defensive player. So if he can hit enough, he's a good player to have there.
Do that infield
There,
again. Starting infield, opening day, going from catcher and first to third.
So James McCann rather would be my starting catcher, and preferably Alex Avila as the backup. But if I got Tyler Flowers or Francisco Cervelli, that's fine. Dom Smith is the starting first baseman. McNeil is second. Guillorme at third with Davis as the backup, and Jimenez at short, and Alonso as the DH. And I would stake my entire job on the notion that there will be a DH in the National League next year. If there isn't, you can fire me on the spot and not pay me any money.
I have one more gentleman on the list that I wanted to cover, and that's Ahmed Rosario.
Ahmed Rosario is going to leave immediately after the season and go to winter ball and learn how to play baseball. He's a super talented athlete who has never learned how to take a strike, how to field properly, how to bunt for a base hit, and
He doesn't walk a lot.
no, it'd be good for him to work on his batter's eye and try to see if he can improve that. My sense is that there's only so good you can get at that, but it is something that Jose Reyes, as an example, did learn and eventually got his on base percentage up in the 340 range at the height of his career. Rosario has often been compared to him. The other thing I'm going to have Rosario learn in winter ball is how to play center field. A lot of shortstops have made the move and have become great center fielders. Robin Yount is the most highest profile example of that. And I would, on Mets lore, recently Juan Lagares came up in the minor leagues as a shortstop and was a Gold Glove center fielder. So I'd be willing to bet that he can be a center fielder, and he would be a cheap one. The other center field, but his current, if he can learn how to bunt for a base hit, I believe his on base percentage can be up in the 320 to 340 range, and he's got enough power and enough contact ability to have a decent average hit for power, and he also needs to learn how to steal a base. Get in, Ricky Henderson. Get in somebody that in the past the Mets have hired Ricky as a coach, and get him to learn Rosario how to steal a base, or to teach him if you prefer English.
I thought Henderson was coming in to teach him cards.
Well, you need to learn those things too, right?
Yeah.
But it is a fact that Rosario is a much better hitter against lefties than righties. And so you have to plan for that eventuality that he may not be able to do anything more than platoon. And so I would go out and spend a little bit of money to get a slightly older center fielder and lure him away from the Yankees, and that's Brett Gardner, who does also have a good reverse split. He's very good against right-handed pitching, and is still decent enough in the outfield to warrant being a good defensive center fielder most of the time, and be your, there are obviously a lot more righties than lefties as pitchers, so he would be your everyday center fielder if Rosario, not your everyday, 4 days out of 5, he would play center field if Rosario does not improve as much as I hope he can.
Is this Conforto guy going to want more money from me?
Is who?
Conforto.
He will. I think the problem you have with Conforto, particularly with this year, is you're going to look at this year and say that he had a great full year. And you look at his numbers at the end of the year, and he's got an OPS near 1,000, good number of home runs, played well defensively. But don't be fooled by the fact that he's missing the last couple games here and he's home for the season, because this has been a problem of his every season of his career. He's had trouble staying healthy. In the past, a lot of times he's played through it and put up decent numbers for the year, 270 with a 800 and change, 850 or so OPS. But that's what the player you should try to pay for. If he's willing to sign a contract that's commensurate with those numbers, and maybe you put in some incentives around there and give him some extra years or extra money if he makes an all-star team and deserves more. But I would be happy. I'd be thrilled to have Conforto stay on an extension. We have him for next year. He's arbitration eligible for one more year. And you make him your everyday right fielder for next year and for, call it a 4 to 5 year extension if you can. But I wouldn't break the bank to do it.
So do we make Conforto a multi-year offer?
Yes, you do. But you ask for a bit of a hometown discount. We've got him for one more year, and he's got a history of injuries that recurred this year. And so he's got to have incentives in his contract. I'm only willing to guarantee him so much money. And he is a little bit older than the other guys that I wanted to offer extensions to. So, but I would definitely want to keep him around. And part of the reason is not just because homegrown players are cheaper. I truly believe that players grow up in an organization, and most of them, not all of them, most of them love that organization. It's their home. It's they feel a special bond to that organization unless and until you teach them that it's really a business and it's all business and they shouldn't have that bond.
All
And
right, let's work around the outfield. You mentioned Rosario as a possibility for center. What about Nimmo?
Nemo's our left fielder. Uh, Again, he's got I think a year or two behind Conforto in terms of arbitration eligible, so you got a little bit more control over him. I'm convinced over the last couple of years that he's good enough to also be somebody you'd want to have around there. His on base percentage is outstanding. He plays good enough defense. He's got a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. He's probably not going to be a guy you want playing, in the outfield past, 33, 35 years old. Um, but, from now till then, I'd be glad to have him on the team. And he's one of those guys that will bleed blue and orange. He is a very exciting, enthusiastic player that the team responds to. Similar to Dom Smith, I think that the team really loves that type of player that really cares about each other, and it makes for a better team.
Jake Marisnik.
Marisnik shocked the hell out of me, if I may use that term, in not sucking completely this year. Um, I would be fine having him as a backup defensive outfielder on a minor league contract. The guy they signed or traded for or picked up off waivers recently, I'm not sure how they picked up Guillermo Heredia. He's also been, decent enough, and he's got enough of he's got like 1,000 major league at bats of being, I would say, slightly better than Marisnik. And so either one of those is fine as a defensive outfielder / platoon player against lefties, should Rosario somehow not fit the bill.
J.D. Davis.
Davis, I'm again happy to have. He's a decent enough player. He should be a DH. He can play a little bit of third base and a little bit of left field, but he's going to be a defensive liability.
So you didn't have me spending any big money on big name free agents in the outfield.
No, I think the Mets are set. I mean, listen, the Mets are third in the majors in OPS this year. They don't need a lot. They need a catcher who can hit. I think what they really need to do is develop their defense. Particularly, I like the way the Braves always did in the '90s and the Greg Maddux era. They had a great defensive catcher. They had a great shortstop. They had a great center fielder, and then they got their offense from the corners. And the Mets have just had this philosophy over the last 6 or 8 years of let's get as many bats as we can and throw them out into the field and see how it works.
I'm going to throw a lot of pitchers past you, and then when we get done with them, you can tell me what else we need, okay?
All right.
Jake DeGrom, we're okay there? We don't have to offer him more money?
You do not. He's under contract, and he will be a Met for the next, 3 or 4 years, so he's good.
Noah Syndergaard.
Syndergaard is signed through, or we have the rights to him through 2021. Obviously, he's an interesting player in that he's coming off of Tommy John surgery, and you really don't know if or when he'll be ready and what he'll be like when he's back. I would love to pencil him into the rotation, but until I see the medical reports, it's impossible to do anything other than plan. Possibly, you might plan for him to be ready and full steam by the All-Star break next year. If he gives you anything more than that, great. Stroman's done with the Mets. Unless you want to bring him back, he's done.
Matt.
Matt is still arbitration eligible. I would be glad to have him be a relief pitcher. I am done with him as a starter. He's only gotten, I think, 3 or 4 innings as a reliever in his professional career. So the jury is out as to whether or not he can be a reliever. But the history of relief pitchers being made from starting pitchers is long and storied. As a quick stat, 23 of the top 25 save relief pitchers in terms of career saves started their career in professional baseball as starting pitchers. So I'm looking for a guy. I'm not looking to draft a relief pitcher or sign free agent relief pitchers. I'm looking to make relief pitchers from guys who are mediocre starters, like Seth Lugo, and like John Franco, and like Randy Myers, and like Tug McGraw, and you go on and on. Armando Benitez, all these great Mets relievers that saved a million games. Jerry's Familia was a failed starter, and they were all very good
You don't want him back, do
all-star
you?
center fielders. Well, Familia's back. We got him for one more year.
Oh no, who did that deal?
That would be your current GM.
Oh man,
Yep,
that guy.
it's a mere $11 million.
Oh yeah.
What's that?
How about David Peterson?
Peterson was a rookie this year. You got him under contract you got him under team control for 5 more years. He showed that he can be at least a number 4 starter. Unfortunately, right now he's your second best starter, maybe your third, depending on what you think of Seth Lugo. I think Lugo belongs in the bullpen.
Rick Porcello.
Porcello's a free agent. He had a very heckle and jive. What am I doing? Men at Work. Jekyll and Hyde. Jekyll and Hyde year this year. Every 2 starts were either awful or excellent, and there was nothing in between. I would be glad to bring him back. He's a Mets. He's a New Jersey guy. He grew up as a Mets fan. I'd be glad to bring him back on a minimal minor league contract, or maybe a 1 year, $1 million guaranteed contract. But I'm not making him anywhere near the kind of offer that we made this past year, which was a 1 year, $10 million deal.
Bobby Gazelman.
He's injured. I've never been a big fan of his. He's a washed out starter, and he's only been mediocre as a relief pitcher. It's hard to tell what happened this year, how much of it was the question of him being bad versus being hurt. He's shown flashes of being okay. If we can put him into the minors and have him sort of pitch his way back onto the team, I'd be happy to have him as a relief pitcher on occasion. I have to double check to see how many options we have left with him are.
Michael Wacha.
Similar to Porcello, but worse. He was on a 1 year, $3 million contract. Happy to have him back on a minor league contract only. I would not offer him a major league contract. He's still a young pitcher. He's still a former All-Star. He's shown you flashes. I think his last start, I was very disappointed that he was brought out for the 6th inning. He gave you 5 decent innings, and maybe that's all he's got. He may be a guy that ends up in the bullpen, and maybe that's where he belongs. But he's a young pitcher with some talent. I'd be happy to have him back on a minor league contract.
Daniel Zamora.
Who?
Good. Some guy in the minors. I just thought I'd throw him past you.
No, I know who he is. I don't need him on the team.
Paul Sewald.
Gone.
Chasen Shreve.
Shreve pitched pretty well this year. That was actually one of the better finds from Brody. And I'd be happy to have him back. His ERA's kind of crept up over his last few appearances, but he's got an excellent strikeout to walk ratio, strikeout to innings pitch ratio. I'd be glad to have him back as one of the back end of the bullpen guys and see how he
Franklin Kilome.
Happy to have him in the minors. This was his first year back off after Tommy John surgery. I always thought he was a bit of a stretch to think of as a starting pitcher, but in the minors, let's see what he can do next year, and maybe he can earn his way back onto the team.
Dylan Betances.
He has a player option for next year, so he will be back almost certainly because he pitched like crap this year. And so I would fully expect him to exercise the player option and pitch for the Mets next year for $6 million, which is rather unfortunate because he sucks.
Brad Brock.
He has a player option for $1.5 million. He pitched better than that, not a lot better than that, but better than that. I would be glad to have him back. If he doesn't exercise the option, I would offer him slightly more to stay, but not a lot more. There are 10 guys that look just like him, so if he doesn't want to stay, that's fine.
Miguel Castro.
Uh, don't much care if he stays or goes.
Jared Hughes.
Gone.
Erasmo Ramirez.
I'd be happy to have him back on a minor league contract. He's pitched way better than anyone has a right to expect. I think he's given up 1 earned run in like 12 innings or something like that. That's not Erasmo Ramirez. He's a mediocre pitcher, so don't be fooled by his 12 innings.
Corey Oswalt.
Gone.
Justin Wilson.
I believe we have him one more guaranteed year out of him, so he's back.
He's back. Yes,
he's okay. He's
did sign him for 2 years.
Yeah.
Did we talk about Drew Smith?
Smith's another one of those guys who's shown flashes. I'm fine for him to be in the minors, and if you need a guy, for a doubleheader, bring him back.
Edwin Diaz.
He's still under team control. I'd love for him to not try to strike out the world and learn how to be more efficient with his pitches, but that's not who he is. He's pitched well enough this year. He's looked a lot more. If he could control the walks, that'd be great. He's looked a lot more like the guy you thought you were trading for when you traded your best couple prospects for him and for Cano. He's back next year. He's going to be the closer. So it is what it is.
Are you spending any of my money on pitchers?
Yeah, because we still only have 2 starting pitchers. You kind of need.
That's bad, I think. It works for Tampa.
It does work for Tampa, but they have 1 million relief pitchers.
Oh.
We have, strangely enough, the bullpen is rather set. I mean, the guys that you mentioned, Diaz is under team control. He'll be back. He'll be the closer. Familia's under contract. He'll be back. He's mediocre, but he's he's there. You can pitch him. I wouldn't pitch him in a lot of high leverage spots. Wilson's back. Lugo goes back to the bullpen. His ERA is almost 2 full runs better as a reliever than as a starter, and almost identical number of innings in his career. He's a relief pitcher. So to me, your bullpen is pretty good with Brock, Wilson, Lugo, Familia, Diaz, Shreve, and Matz. And Betances is the up by 10, down by 10 guy until he proves that he's better than that. So there's your relief. You're not spending any money on relief pitchers, and you've got some minor leaguers that you mentioned, Colomé and Drew Smith and so forth. DeGrom and Peterson are going to start the year in the rotation. I'm going to try to get 2 of Tanaka, Taijuan Walker, and Kevin Gausman as starting pitchers, and at least 2 of Porcello, Walker, Mike Minor, and Stroman to a minimal contract. So I'm spending money to get 2 of, if it costs me, 3 years and $60 million or more to get Tanaka, I'd spend that money. I wouldn't spend a lot more money than that. And I'd spend a similar amount of money, call it 3 and 15 or something like that for Gausman or Ty Walker. They're young pitchers who don't have a lot of miles on them, but they do have some injuries. They don't have a lot of innings, but they do have a lot of injuries, and they do have a lot of talent. Walker's pitched particularly well this year. Gausman's been pretty good this year. So I want at least 2 of those guys. And then I want at least 2 other starters like Porcello, Walker, Mike Minor, and Marcus Stroman to make sure that you have. And then when Syndergaard comes back, hopefully sooner rather than later, you'll have at least 7 major league pitchers. And you really probably need at least that, if not 8. You don't want to be pulling your best relief pitcher and putting him into a starting role, as the Mets did with several relief pitchers, including Lugo this year. It's not a good strategy, and that's one of the things that drove me crazy about Brody this year was his stated goal of having every contingency, be ready for in case, for the just in case, right? The what if in life, I think, is Met Life thing or something. And he went into the year with 5 starting pitchers, 2 of which were terrible last year in Porcello and Waka, and then one of them opted out in Stroman, and you knew that you had just let go Wheeler and lost Syndergaard for the year. You knew that back in January, so it was inexcusable for them to have the starting pitching that they had.
That's going to get you this job. You speak like that. You say things like inexcusable.
Well,
Do
I can only hope that you will give me the opportunity.
Do I keep the manager?
Frankly, I would not. I don't think he's done a terrible job. I think that it's hard to tell just how much a manager makes a difference. The thing that's bothered me this year, the 2 things that have bothered me this year, are the inability to tell when to leave a starter in and when to take him out. He always takes DeGrom out early and leaves everyone else in too long, and I don't understand that.
Do you keep the pitching coach?
I have seen no reason to think that the pitching coach is any good this year. The Mets have the 21st best ERA in baseball. That's not the Mets. Granted, he's had nothing to work with. I do understand that. I'd be happy to hear his thoughts on why he should stay. The other thing that's bothered me about Rojas as a manager is just the number of really awful ways the Mets have lost games this year. A walk-off wild pitch, a walk-off hit by pitch, a game-ending pick-off. The list goes on and on. That's just off the top of my head. And some of that's got to start with the manager. I mean, you've got to have smart baseball, and there's got to be some sort of accountability to that. Can he learn? Maybe. I mean, everybody loves him. Everybody thinks he's brilliant. I don't know. If you put a gun to my head and say he's got to get one more year to see if he can learn, that's fine. I can live with that. I would make the move now. I would go get somebody who has some experience. Last year, I would have signed Joe Girardi. I haven't looked at the available free agent managers this year, but I'd look for somebody with some winning experience that knows how to actually manage in the bigs.
Gase might be available. Oh, wait, that's wrong.
Yeah, but he'd probably be better at baseball. It certainly can't be worse.
He couldn't be any worse, but I wanted this to be a one-topic show. Now, if you're just listening for the first time and you're like, this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but why would I support him being the GM? Just listen to our pre-season preview and listen how accurate the Boz was on all of these things. Ultimately, the Mets' record, whether they'd make the playoffs or not, who would have good years, who would have bad years, what his concerns were. He was all over this season. And he can help if he's somewhere on that Mets staff. Make it happen, people. You can do this. We got hashtag Boz for Mets GM. We got the at FlickBoz on Twitter. We got the flickboz@gmail.com if you want to get your emails into us, and keep listening on YouTube on the Flick and the Bozman show. I think you had a great interview there, Dave, and I wish you luck when you send in this application.
Thanks, Flick. I appreciate it. That was fun.